This video shows you how to use push notifications sent from Liferay in an Android app. Liferay uses the backend, and the Android app uses Liferay Screens. To those unfamiliar with Screens, it's a new project from Liferay that lets you use pre-built components to quickly create a mobile app that interacts with Liferay installation. The first step is to create a Google project in the Google Developers Console and then enable it for push. To do this, navigate to the Google Developers Console in your browser and create a new project. When the project creation finishes, which may take some time, you need to enable the Google Push API for it. To do this, select Google Cloud Messaging for Android, then click the Enable API button. Once the API is enabled, you need to create a separate key for it. Since this key will be used by your Liferay server, make sure you create it as a server key. Once the key is created, you're ready to configure your Liferay server for push. In your portal, go to the App Manager and install the Liferay Push app from the Liferay Marketplace. Note that for this video I'm installing a custom version of this app. You won't have to do this. The app I'm installing manually is the same one that will be released on Marketplace soon. Once the app installs, go to Control Panel, Configuration, and then Push Notifications. Then click the Configuration Android tab. Copy the server key you created in the Google Developers Console, and then paste it in the API key field of the Android Configuration tab. Then click Save. Next, click the Configuration Test tab. This is where you can enter a message to send via push as a test. The Devices tab shows the devices that are registered with the portal for receiving push notifications. Of course, there aren't any registered devices yet, but you'll take care of this in a second. The next step is to use the server ID and server key in an Android app. In this example, I create a new Android app that uses Liferay Screens and push notifications. However, you can add screens and also add push to an existing app if you wish. For the sake of simplicity, I create the project using a blank activity in the default settings, but this isn't required. Once you have your project, you need to add Liferay Screens as a dependency. Open your app's build.gradle file and add screens as a dependency. Here I just copy it in from a text editor. You should also add the packaging options to prevent conflicts with certain libraries. You'll be used to this if you're already an Android developer. I'm also using a custom repository, but that's just for this demo. You won't need to do it. Now sync your project. When the project finishes syncing, Liferay Screens is available. You can test this by searching for Liferay Screens classes. You can see in these search results that Liferay Screens is available. So that means my project setup is working. Next up is to enable push notifications. The simplest way to do this is to change the activity to extend abstract push activity. Use Android Studio to autocomplete the methods that this class requires you to implement. For the getSenderID method, you need to return the appropriate sender ID. This is the project number from the Google Developers Console. Copy this number and then paste it in as a string in the getSenderID method. You also need to return the session from the getDefaultSession method if you're not already authenticated. If you're using Login Screenlet to authenticate from Liferay Screens, then this step is unnecessary. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll just create a session manually. Note that there's also a method that gets called when a push notification is received. This is the onPushNotificationReceived method. If you have any code that you want to run when the push notification is received, this is where you place it. Next, I'm going to add a few methods that show off the power of push notifications in Liferay Screens. Note that this code isn't required for push notifications to work. I'm just adding it to show off the messages a little bit. After I copy it in, I use Android Studio to add the necessary imports. So, after a little bit, I have all the imports added. Now I'll call one of these methods in the onPushNotificationsReceived method. Then I'll change the main activity's layout so that it matches the code I just wrote, as well as making some other changes. For example, in addition to changing relative layout to linear layout, and also deleting the placeholder text, I give the layout the ID that I'm calling in the main activity class. The final step to prepare your Android app is to make sure it has permission to access the internet. To do this, open the manifest and add the internet permission. You'll be used to doing this if you're an Android developer. Now you're ready to launch your app. Note that the Gradle build may take some time, like it's doing right now. In the meantime, I'll copy an example message that I have ready to send from the portal. Once the Gradle build finishes and the app launches in the emulator, go to your portal and access the push notifications from the control panel. You can see that the emulator now shows up in the Devices tab. Click the Configuration Test tab, enter a message, and click Send. Of course, you can change your message as much as you want to and keep sending more, just like I'm doing here. The additional methods I wrote in the app earlier are adding the message colors and appear to thread the conversation when it appears in the app. Great, now you know how to create an Android app that can receive push notifications from Liferay. You should also be aware that there's another way to enable push. This is presented in another video. Also, you can let your portlets send push notifications from your portal to Android devices.